Yep, and we are live with another one. Had to do the Killmonger on this one because going into the people talk. As it stands, the verdict came in about Romeo having mixed emotions with his father, and to a degree, we had well, I'm sorry, not we. Take Let me wind it back. I was on a panel, and I was talking with some gentlemen, and we came to different discussions about the situation. And there was a guy by the name of Mumu that he pretty much had the same outlook on this situation because at the end of the day, Romeo wasn't trying to, garner something that wasn't there or trying to, come at his pops foul. If it's only one way I can reach you, and that's through the limelight, then so be it, you know, because there were situations to where Romeo said he reached out to his father so they can have this discussion several times. You know, nobody's not accounting for that, but more or less accounting for the situation of him being public about, their issue. And to a degree, when it comes down to it all the time, these issues typically, being in family settings and stuff, if it gets out, it get out. Like what more can you do? If your son is wilding out and you try to keep family business in house, but if it takes him to let everybody know we're wild out for you to grasp this conversation, and honestly, the general he pretty much quoted that how would P accept it now because you're putting family business out? So if I didn't listen to you before, I'm just about surely ain't gonna listen to you now because you're putting more family business out. And I kind of get where he came from with that situation in that scenario, due to the fact that, hey, if I didn't want to talk about it, I just didn't want to talk about it. And I'm feeling some type of way, and then when you bring it up in front of everybody, it's like it kind of embarrassed me. So for the more reason for me not to want to talk about it. But to an extent, I was having this discussion with my cousin and my wife last night. And basically, like I explained to them that, when it comes down to it, say the least, this situation is just crazy because the way I was raised pretty much like rough and rugged. You get in trouble for your actions and all this stuff. When it came, did I have my settings for my, oh, let me check it later. But pretty much when it came down to it, if you did something wrong, you got to whip them for it. And it come a point to where every generation you learn something different. And me and my cousin was ciphering that basically he was like, well, if I whoop you, then turn around and give you some candy or something, or do something for this, then it'll kind of elevate you to know that I care and I talk to you. I was like, yeah, but some parents aren't nurturing like that. They was not nurtured, so how can they nurture someone else? It's like passing of the torch. You would literally have to want to change the next generation. Other than that, it's more of a repeated cycle. So if whoopings work for me, then I'm gonna whoop my kids. If talking work for me, I'm gonna talk to my kids. You know, to be honest, when it comes down to it, every generation gets softer and softer. I might even drop the link since Pastor up, because we had this discussion. But more or less, it comes down to the mental aspect of it. Romeo was searching for some type of, fatherly love, or even just to have the discussion. Because even my wife didn't know. that Romeo's sister committed suicide, she was just under the impression that she overdosed. And I was like, what seems to look more better in the public eye? Overdosing or, you know, suicide. So you don't want, pretty much in general, a lot of people to know that your daughter committed suicide. So it's an overdose. And just like I was saying to the guys when I was up there, I said, well, you look at the situation where his sister committed suicide, and if Romeo commits suicide, is he still a good father at the end of the day, despite all the stuff he did for his kids? But every child, have their issues saying that my father's not there for me. You know, he's a great provider, protector, but past that, emotionally, he wasn't there. And that's what a lot of celebrity and, you know, um, industry kids always talking about, the parents not being there. So that poses real big, as far as a lot of people trying to come at Romeo about this situation, because more or less you can say that Master P was a provider all day, but if you're not emotionally there with your kids and understand it, his father probably wasn't there with him. So he adopted that same narrative into treating his kids the same way. Like, oh man, I'm not gonna do this and do that with my kids. I'm gonna be tough. I'm not gonna be, emotionally like my father's never emotionally like that for me. So they gotta get it just like I got it. But it comes a time when you have to change that, you know. It comes a time when you have to change that, when you have to say, like I said, with my kids, when there's some situations, yeah, you do something bad, you getting a whooping. Because I have to literally punish you to an extent to let you know that whatever you do, there's consequences behind it. I'd rather punish you at home than you to get to be an adult and the system punish you. I mean, because they're already yearning to punish you in general. So you give them a reason, that's more or less proper proper stripes, you know. So when it comes down to it, it's just all about your parenting, with most people. And saying the least, me and my cousin had several talks. He was, well, come down to one of his sons. The son was complaining about he never got a bike, he never got skates, but his son had all the video games that he wanted because that's what he wanted at that time to play video games. He wasn't outside with the other kids running around that didn't have video games. He was inside with his brothers playing video games. Every now and then he'll go outside, play with the kids, but then he'll come back in, go straight to the game. For Christmas. They didn't want bikes and stuff like that. They wanted games. And they got clothes. They got games and clothes and a few toys, you know. And that's like the biggest thing with these kids nowadays. They're very emotional, man. I mean, you have situations where kids are taking their lives because of bullies. Kids are taking their lives from situations with their parents where they're not, going through things, which they don't like from their parents. I had this discussion with my cousin that, if a kid gets whooped all the time and, no kind of stable conversation or to a degree, something that can modify why am I getting in trouble and why am I getting in trouble so much, you're gonna spaz out. I mean, that's in general. A person that goes to jail a lot, that's the same thing that's gonna happen to them. They're gonna just take it like, why me all the time? And with this new generation of kids, they can't handle pressure. A lot of them commits to, thinking that this is the only way out is to, take themselves out or, do something dramatic to themselves to where the parents will stop doing what they're doing or ultimately, someone come take them from the home. Because you have some bad and abusive parents. Even the least where we had the conversation that you have parents that are on drugs and the kids go there, take care of the parents while they're on drugs, you know, put them in good situations. Like if they take medicine, they give them medicine. They make sure they eat. They wipe them down, or just put them in the bed. Say the least. There's a lot of kids that did that back in the day during the crack era. Just took care of their parents, and then you had the kids that were just bad and wilding out. And like I told my cousin, it was through it was through circumstances. You know, there was a lot of kids that said, "I'm not gonna live like this. I want better for my life. I'm not gonna treat my kids like this." You had some kids that had a purpose for just graduating so they can leave. There's this one kid that I stayed next to. My son was friends with him, and say the least, his mom, she was, she was out there. She was prostituting and stuff. But the thing of it was, she didn't work, and that was the way she took care of her kids. And the thing that kind of, scared me was she would always bring these dudes to her home where her kids was at. Sometimes she had the kids not there, but mainly the dudes, I guess she got close with, they were paying the bills and stuff. She was bringing them there mainly. Then she had other dudes, she'd make money off of when I guess boyfriend or something was at work. But I mean, saying the least, like that little boy, man, he had it rough. And his mom had three daughters. The oldest daughter, she got out because she couldn't take it. Then she tried to come back and get her two younger sisters, and the mom wasn't gonna let her do that. So, she just had to stick around every so often and check on her sisters, make sure they were good, and her brother. And it got to the point where the brother, he graduated high school, no look back. That dude went to the Navy, and he told my son, because he was like a year or two older than my son, told my son, was like, man, it's the best thing, man. Got to get into the Navy. Man, I'm seeing the world. I'm making money. And like, he was just so happy, you know, doing that. But like I said, it's due to circumstances. If you're in this circumstance where you got to move this way or act this way or, feel this way, that's what you're going to do, you know. But like I said with Romeo, you know, he opened up to his father. He said he tried to talk to him off camera. He tried to have the conversation and never got it. So now he opened up about it. Everybody's looking at him, kind of shaming him for calling his dad out. And this is a great man. Yeah, but how great is he if he can't have the conversation with his son? Like I said, understanding that if he couldn't have that conversation, he should have went and took his son to go get help. I can't talk to you. I don't do that. But I will take you to somebody that you can get help. Or Romeo should have got all his family members together and had like an intervention with his dad. My thing is, I don't think he should have put it out to the public. That should have been something that was kept in house, like I say, because keep going back to it, family business is family business. And to a degree, this newer generation is more or less outing a lot of the family members, which we should have been doing to a degree back in the day, because that could have kept a lot of families, together intact and, a little better, and say the least, a lot of the women were protecting the men that were, doing things to the young girls and vice versa. How many women touch little boys back in the day in their family? So it was on both sides. And we don't have these talks. We don't have these situations to where we break a lot of this stuff down. So just in general, these young kids, they grow up with this trauma and they can never relate to their parents. They can never relate to family members because let's say your mom protected or your dad protected the person that was your abuser. And then it's not even taken to the point of abuse. Let's take them to the point of you never got the love from your parents. And what do you mean by love? If something goes wrong and, on top of everything, I understand men are more emotional, but not even having that love from your mother or a female in the family, that hurts. It's like basically like you're growing up alone, you know, and from that emotional side, from your mother being a nurturer, like it's like you're walking alone in the earth with nobody. Your mom's not emotional. She comes at you like a man because you're a boy, and she have to do that because that's the only way she thinks to make you tough. Your father, he's not gonna be soft like that to his son or his daughter. He tries to, but back in the day, those guys didn't move like that. This newer generation, you know, we move like that. I used to hug my daughter, you know, talk to her a lot, and we have our conversations. I used to take her out to eat sometimes, just me and her. We'll go sit down and eat breakfast together, talk. I did that with my son a couple of times too when he was young. You know, I make sure everybody's asleep in the house. I go grab him. We'll run to the Waffle House or something, grab something to eat, and I just sit there and talk with him. You doing okay in school? Everything's okay. And a lot of times, you know, my wife will wake up. How you do that? You could have took everybody. I said I just want some alone time with them. I never really get them away from each other because with the brother and sister always together, and as they got older, I want to kind of connect with them. Especially when they were like 15, 16 years old. You're doing okay in school. How you got a little girlfriend, you got a boyfriend. What y'all doing? You know, what's the person name? Why you won't bring them around or something? Just having conversations with them. And then ultimately, when I bring them both together, because they see each other all the time at home and they're always around each other. You know, even though they had their own room, my son was always attached to his sister for the most part because his sister would always be trying to, pull him in on everything. It got to a point where he, more or less started getting into his stage of becoming a man. And it was funny because as he started getting into that realm, that's when he actually started coming to a point where he started saying that, you know, I'm my own self, and I can't let you bully me or talk to me a certain way. Coming at a sister hard sometimes. And sometimes I allowed it because, at the same time, he was branching off from her because she was trying to put him in the point like she was controlling him a lot. And it was to a point, like I say, you know, I would talk to him and just basically tell him, you don't want to be soft as a boy. You want to have some toughness to you. Not saying that you have to be tough all the time, but you got to have some toughness to you because, you know, this world will eat you alive as a young man. Not being, some type of tough, you'll have everybody coming at you. One of my sons was going through that. My youngest sons was going through that to kids would hit him in the head because, say the least, you get the fade. You got that skin in the back. See, girls don't know about that, but I know they seen it where you get hit in the back of the head. And my son came home. He was mad. He was like, "Everybody keep hitting me in the head." I was like, "I told you, you got to get that low cut." I say, "Cause with them fades, kids gonna always hit you in the back of the head." I say, that's something you gotta have to protect your head. And I laugh. I said, "It's like a pass a right a rite of passage for you." And his brother, he has plaques. He ain't decided whether he wanna dread it up or some. My wife don't want him to dread his head, but he has a lot of hair on his head, so it come to a point they're not hitting him like that. But my other son, they hit him, and he with it, like he want to fight, and I be like, like if they keep doing it, then hey, you got to do what you got to do, but at the same time, just tell them to stop, put your hoodie on, wear a hat, preventative stuff. But if they just keep doing it, I'm like, can't stop. They putting their hands on me, you know, and that was my biggest thing when I was growing up. If somebody touched me, I tell you to stop. I gave you fair warning. That was the only time I really got in trouble in school. So, like the teachers, they wouldn't mess with me because they know I was a good kid. I didn't cause no trouble. I was, I do my work. I wasn't a bad person, but at the same time, it's like to a point where you're not gonna take no stuff from nobody. So that's when it comes to that point. But getting back into P and his son, Say the least, man. This kid, kind of reached out mainly because of the guy passing, and P kind of shared, about this guy passing from suicide. And the craziness of it is, it's like he's looking at his sister. You didn't share his sister. I mean, emotionally, why would I want to share my family member something happening to them like this? This is a tragic thing, you know. I wouldn't want to share one of my family members like, you know, when my family members died, I didn't share none of that stuff on social media. One of my coaches, he was so mad at me. He was like, "Man, I had so much respect for your grandmother, and why you didn't tell me? I would have came to the funeral." He said, "Man, I love that old lady, because I stayed across the street from the school. This is crazy, but all of us, with me wrestling and my coaches, they all, you had to interact with the parents, and you know that was the thing. And even when one of our other friends died, I mean, his mom died, he had like basically like a little GoFundMe started with all of us, and everybody sent me cash out, and we gave it to him to kind of put towards the funeral and everything, just some extra to help out with the family. If it wasn't for the funeral, it was for the repast, or, just to get some things squared away. Whatever they wanted to do with the money, that was just for them. And, saying the least, with P, he just didn't connect with his son. Like I said, this guy made billions of dollars. He's done big for the community. But at the end of the day, if you can't come home and relate to your son, it's like a lot of that stuff, man. I'm kind of on the fence about it, and that's my biggest thing about it. And saying the least, like I say, with this generation, you got to change it up. You can't move. I mean, understanding the way you was raised, if it works, it works. But to a degree, it comes a time where you see little situations to where it's not working as well as it did for you. So then you have to switch it up. You know, he would have to be more there for his son emotionally. You know, him losing his sister probably was the icebreaker. And then more he tried to reach out to his dad talking about the situation. Like I said, you got the old school, old school dad. Show no emotion. Didn't cry in front of your kids. You know, always looked at them as angry. Looked at them as you can't talk to them or reach out to them. You know, they'll they'll do this and do that to you. So you get to a point where you're so defensive about your father. Even in like the movie Fences, with Denzel tell his son, and the crazy part, I didn't even see the movie, but everybody told me I guess that wasn't his son at the end. But the point of it was, he told him, I put food on you, on the table, clothes on your back, roof over your head. What I got to like you for? A lot of the old men carried that type of spirit, that I'm here to raise you. Even knowing that it was his son or not, a lot of old men carried that spirit. You know, some men never hug their kids, you know, and if it is a hug, it's just a good job that you did something good in sports, or, something like that. One of my friends, his biggest thing with his son, he said his son loves this the most. Every time he does something good in school, sports, just in general, he big up and cheer his son, give him high fives and everything. So that accolade makes him want to do better, and every child is different. You know, his daughter, he hugs her all the time. She gets the hugs, the sons get the high five. But it comes a time when he has to hug his son, let him know everything's gonna be okay. Try a little harder, you know, things of that nature. And when it comes down to it, like I said, you have to switch up for these kids nowadays. And it's to a degree, the kids aren't hard as we used to be. You know, A lot of kids, they look at other kids in their life. They, I seen other kids had better, and I seen other kids had worse. That was just them. I knew my life wasn't theirs. I couldn't live their life, so I didn't go around moping. I dealt with what I had and did the best I could until I can care for myself. You know, I was working what 12, even younger than that, doing stuff with my granddad. He had his own business. I worked with my granddad to get money. If I had to pay for something for sports or something like that, when I wasn't old enough to get a job, I would go work with my granddad. I remember one summer, and this is funny. I was with my aunt, and I seen this machine. I think I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, and I seen this machine. I was like, "What that machine is?" And they was like, "That's the can machine. You know, you take the cans and you crush them, you get money." So my aunt didn't have a car at the time, so we walked to the grocery store. Walking to the grocery store, I swear I picked up probably like 30, 40 cans and took those 30, 40 cans and, put them in that machine. I ain't get much back, but at the same time, it's just like, dang, getting money is this easy? Like, man, I could be picking up cans and saving cans at the house and putting it in this machine when I come see my aunt. And like, that was the mindset I had, you know? And even when I got older and got my own, like, the first job I ever got was at Six Flags. I was working double shifts every day. They made me take days off because they was like, why? Why are you working double shifts? I told them, I was like, man, I only got to the summer to make money. At the end of that, I don't have nothing else. I have to work to, provide for myself and do stuff. If I want better clothes than what my grandparents get me, I can buy it because I got the money. I got to pay for my dues, come for school, you know, because other than that, I'm gonna have to go work my granddad and stuff. So I had all that money set aside, and seeing that my grandparents that raised me, they were older. Their generation, they pretty much raised my mom and my two uncles. Their train of thought and mentality on how they raised the kids, that was so 2 decades. So by the time I came, she was still trying to use an old method that was played out, to raise a kid a certain way. You know, she did the best she could. Now I didn't fault her for that, but at the same time, that connection wasn't there with majority. My aunt, there were other family members that stepped in and kind of helped her out, but to a point, she was older. You know, you have some hip grandmas that's with the time that can you know be there for you, talk to you, and this and that. But that generation right there, there was a silent generation or something. They held a lot of stuff in. They kept a lot of secrets, and then going into the Gen Xers and boomers and all this other stuff, like man, it didn't start getting better, in my opinion. To you know, well, not even say better because every generation had their own little stripes and stuff, but pretty much when I came along, I seen how things change according to talking to the elders and stuff. Cause that's one of my biggest things. I talk to a lot of old people that kind of, that's how you know where you come from. That's how you know how things have evolved by talking to the past generation and see how they move. And the thing, with P Son, he looked at all that money didn't equate to having a wonderful life because it was just money at the end of the day for him. He said his dad didn't, hold a lot of that money back. He did other things with the money. And it's like, yeah, at the same time, he made his son what he is. You know, he made his son what he was, and he put his son in a situation to where I always say this: when it comes down to it, you can do what you do as a parent, but when that child grows up, Most of the time they're going to be distant. They're going to have their own life. They're going to make their own rules and regulations. One of my friends once told his mom, and she got mad at this. She was at his house trying to tell him to do something. And he looked back at her and said, "Didn't you tell me when I get my own house? That's my own rules. And this is my rule in my house." She was so offended. She was like, "I'm going to get out your house. I'm going to get out the house." But at the same time, it's like you can't have those conversations like that with your parents because it's to a point when is being disrespectful or, you know, say the least, understanding being taken for good or bad. You know, like with my friend, he didn't have no intent on disrespecting his mother, but the way she checked him as a child, he basically just had to refer. These are your words. These are your words. You know, she wanted him to do something in his house. He didn't want to do. And she was like, "No, this is how it looks. This is how you're supposed to do. This is how it's supposed to look." He referred to, "No, I do it this way. And if you don't like it, eh, this is my house, my rule." And she got offended. But him being a child, what was the rule with him? When he was a child, it was her rules, her way. So say the least, man, with P and his son, they just had a lot of connecting that they need to really work on. Um, this right here may be an embarrassing moment that he can, go to get some counseling with his son, because they have to have that conversation. He's reaching out like to a point where if something would have happened to Romeo, could we honestly say that Peace is still a good father? I mean, far as money wise, like I say, we can automatically say, far as him being a good father, money wise, he's he's there for his kids. Financially, he put his kids in the best situation. All his brothers and sisters, to my degree, all went to college, all made some of themselves. They got in different industries and did stuff, but Romeo was the more, out outspoken, outgoing, because I guess he had that gift. And if he didn't have it, guess what? He put it in him. But it still don't take away from the emotional tie that his son wants. Him being old as he is in his 30s, he never got that love from his father. So that's why, to a point, he just said enough is enough and reaching out for, that that type of help. And, say the least, man. And some people can deal with it easier than others, you know. And some people just they get fed up, like in his case, to where they can't take it no more. Because, at the end of the day, hey, if I feel a certain way, I feel a certain way. So for the most part, man, like I said, it, every generation, man, you gotta learn how to talk to your kids more, relate to them, have an understanding. You know, always picking up a belt ain't the answer, and just talking everything out is not always the answer. You have to have that balance in between. Even emotionally with your son, your daughter, you're gonna have to sit down and talk with them. See how they okay. Mentally, what's going on. You know, how many parents, even when your kids are adults, have those conversations where you can sit down and talk to them and just ask them what's going on in life. And saying the least that you don't want to leave this earth, to a degree, and your child never got some things resolved with you because you wasn't emotionally there for them. They couldn't reach out to you, so it was to an extent where if they're if they can't reach out to you and you're not emotionally there, it's no relation. You know, like in Master P's case, everything was good for the camera, but outside of that, what was it? You know, Like other than that, like what's basically was good for him other than what they showed on the camera. Because as it looked in the camera, they had a good life. You know, everything was good. Nothing was wrong with any situation. You couldn't tell that, you know, Romeo was feeling his way about his father. He was always looking like he was happy to be around. He was always in pictures looking like, my dad's this, my dad's that. But deep down, hey man, we had these situations and we have to sit here, like I said, do more talking, do more listening. I mean, this could have been a situation could have been avoided with his daughter. You know, if she was addicted to drugs and you talked to her more, you would have caught this situation before it happened. Same thing applying to, you know, Romeo. This would have never went public if you did more talking with him. If he did more talking with him and kind of, knew that this was an underlying thing for Romeo, that he felt this way about his father, not this and not that. Because I mean, at the end of the day, all it takes is that one tweet, like he did, set everything off by storm. And who knows? Even if this might be a promotion or not, never know. But at the same time, taking things with a grain of salt. If this was something true and worth having a conversation about, then P needs to sit there and talk to his son. You know, Most likely you're gonna have all these different shows reaching out. Gail, Phil, all these people want to talk to him. Sit down and have that conversation. Remember, Oprah was big for that, trying to get people together. I mean, who was it? Had that situation where DMX and his son got together, and his son basically explained, "It was Ayana fixed my life." Remember how she did with Terrell Owens and his father. His father wasn't there. That's how he got his celebrity, kind of stardom up because he would show out so much to try to get his dad to come see him play football. Then it became a thing of being just cocky with it and the trauma behind that stuff that he still never got over, having a relationship with his father that ultimately stayed across the street from him, you know. And like I said, these are conversations we don't have, man. We don't have these conversations as men. I mean, the provider thing, I give P that 100%. But to a point, a kid can have all the money in the world. That don't make them happy. We see it time and time again with these celebrities. Kids having all this money, getting anything they want, and then in the end, they just check out of life because the parent wasn't there for them. Just like in the scene with Monster Ball, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was going to talk about it how Monster Ball, it was like the kid wasn't emotionally attached with his dad to a degree, and it's like he wasn't there. He raised him. He was a good dad, got him a good job and everything else. But he was more emotionally to the point where, like doing the guy's last walk, he threw up. He couldn't take it that he's bringing somebody to their death. Some people feel like that. Some people don't. But say the least, man, I'm about to get ready to jump off of here. When it come down to it, man, you got to get yourself together. Hold on, real quick. Let me. All right, let me flip over here. Yeah, I was just checking on my moderators. All right. So with that being said, man, I'm about to jump off of here. But Have the conversation with your kids and have the conversation with your family members, because you might have some stuff that you need to talk to your family members about that, you have some trauma that you got as a child, been lingering, never got resolved, or to a degree have some type of way of putting stuff to rest. But at say the least, man, as it comes down to it, got it. Say the least, have these conversations with your family members. Have these conversations with your kid, especially because, you know, they could be getting bullied in school and emotionally they might can't take it, or they don't know what to do. Try to talk to your kids more because they can relate to you and they're not scared. It's not a burden to come and talk to you. Like I say, especially as fathers, our sons more or less will look at us being so, rough and rugged around us and everything. But when it comes to a degree, man, we got to open up, man. We got to have that discussion. And with that being said, like I always say, we here and we gone.